Do you find that people tend to sort of concentrate on just one thing? And I talk about individuals who are wanting to get into the political sphere, because I mean the political sphere it's quite a huge umbrella because it abords so many different aspects of life, and you get somebody that just concentrates on one particular thing, and because they concentrate on that particular thing, they ignore the rest independently what side of the aisle they're on, as you say in the US, right? Which way they lean, they sort of ignore that, and if it doesn't if it doesn't immediately resonate with them because they are concentrating on this one particular, a very limited scope of what they're looking at. Do you think that's why it's almost like the short-tempered, if that makes sense to you? The short-tempered of what's actually going on around them. They don't have a lot of time for it because they're concentrated on this.
Yeah, I think there's a combination of things going on there. I think you're right. There's a frustration. There is an overload of information that people are dealing with. And it's natural when you're trying to make sense of things to try to pick out things that you're going to focus on. And we do have, I don't know what the percentages are. We do have some single issue voters, and they do that. But I would say that the explosion of the podcasts going away from just three channels, so much information has caused that overload, and um, so people do tend to focus on a few things, and then if they don't get the results, then you get that frustration. So there's this sort of general frustration, but to your point, not everybody's frustrated with the same things, right? They have unique things that they want.
That's right.
Now,
Which is why I say these people
yeah,
they will focus on just one thing. Doesn't matter what it is, but it's just one thing, and
yeah.
because of that, they ignore the rest,
I
sort of
mean,
thing,
I,
until it's too late, so to speak.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, again, because we looked at this and like the internet and 24-hour news, which I think came from the US, ironically, before it hit us anywhere else. Yeah,
I think what CNN was the first, right?
yeah. I think
TNN or Turner, whatever. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
certainly, yeah,
CNN.
yeah, yeah. CNN. Yeah, I mean, okay, it was great. You could turn on 24 hours time and see this, but yeah, it's there's got to do a lot of padding now, and I think this became apparent. And when we watch the news from the US, more so in the UK, but we say about BBC, etc., there is a definite polarization. If you vote or think a certain way, you watch Fox. If you think another way, it's MSBNC. I'm going to leave CNN out of this because CNN used to be very balanced years ago. Yeah, I mean, if you went to any airport, if you wanted to know what's happening, or even if you're at home, you put CNN on when it became available. Yeah, I think that's.
Don't
I
don't
don't.
forget don't forget don't forget, Michael, that when Mark was younger, he was innocent too.
I still am called to Steve sometimes. Yeah, I actually believe there's good in certain people in the higher levels of the hierarchy. Yeah,
Well,
um,
you can be cynical and still believe there's a lot of good, but
yeah,
you're just
You need
more
to be you need to become
discerning.
you need
yeah,
to become convinced more, I suppose.
yeah,
Yeah, you have to be very discerning, and people need to prove it a little bit.
yeah.
So let's try and hone in on this last 8 years, right? So has there been a contrast in lifestyles in general over the last well, we talk about Trump's first term, and then we talk about Biden, and I want to keep out of if the election was rigged and all this, that can't come into the conversation. I'm talking about the lifestyle and what's changed, if it changed, if it's got worse, if it's got better. How would you see it without even don't even need to mention names, I suppose. It's just over the last 8 years.
Well, I think the cultural dimension that has really impacted the last 8 to 12 years. I, I hate to use the word woke, but you have you coming out of the civil rights, you develop the ESG, DEI, and that drove additional polarization. Some of the famous Me Too, toxic masculinity, a lot of those things drove people down certain paths and antagonized and turned off other people. And so I think that's what you're seeing now. I mean, for example, young men in the US now are becoming more conservative. And that's a function of, as people have pointed out, if you keep telling them they have bad instincts, they're bad people, they're going to listen to other people. And they may be listening to other people that are not trustworthy, but they know they're not bad inherently. And being painted as that has hurt. Now, you've also got, and all of this is driven, people want to be famous, they want to be rich. So they leverage all these movements, right? I mean, you could take feminism. Feminism is like eating itself in many ways, right? I mean, we have someone who's done a lot of writing in our Facebook page that's really called out the intersexual competition. It's not anyone who thinks that feminism is a single block is missing the mark. They're competing against each other, and just as marketers are competing, with brands and trying to leverage whatever they can. Now, the interesting thing is that backlash has really pushed, woke to the background, I think. And that's why you see Donald Trump, pushing back on DEI and things like that, and getting more his positioning as common sense resonates with a lot of people in the US. So I would say if I had to pick something, it's very hard, and I'm one person out of 330 million. I would say that some of that cultural influence over the last 12 years, and the changes as it's gone through is some of the biggest stuff that's going on in the US that's changed. And depending upon results of this administration, and it's a wait and see mode, that erosion of sort of that woke culture will continue. And if it fails, you might see a bit of a comeback with it.